Today we're on page 43 in our notebook. We're talking about equations, tables, and graphs. So go ahead and pause your video so that you can set up your notebook so it looks just like this. Do not forget to fill out your table of contents page as well on number 43. Today your warm-up says find the constant rate of change in the following table. Remember, when we find constant rate of change, that's when we have to find the patterns. So you're going to go ahead and find the patterns, and then remember that it's y over x. So this is your x, this is your y, and it's change in y over change in x. So go ahead and do your warm-up. Today your learning goal says given a scenario, create an equation, table, and a graph. And your language goal says translate words into an equation. So those are the things that we're going to be doing today. You have a paper that says how to find y-intercept, and this is going to be glued in right underneath your warm-up. And so you just have to fill in the blanks. It says in a table, when the x value is 0, the y value is the y-intercept. So you're going to want to fill in what's in red here. And then in a graph where the line crosses the y-axis is where your y-intercept is. So you're going to want to fill in y-axis. On your desk you also have an example page, and it says a we do number 1 and then a you do number 1. That's the front page, so go ahead and make sure that you're on that page. Your first blank says rate of change, so I know how to find rate of change because I have to find my pattern. I really only need 2 points here, so I'm going to take the first 2 points. On my x-axis I'm going from -1 to 0, so I know that I'm adding 1 on that side. And then on my y-axis, I'm going from 4 to 3, so I know I'm subtracting 1 on that side. And I know that it's change in y over my change in my x. And so this is -1 over 1. And I know that -1 divided by 1 is just -1. So that is my rate of change, -1. In order for me to find my y-intercept, we have to go and look at our table. I want to see where my x value is 0. Make sure that it's your x value is 0. And I look at the number that's next to it, that y value. That is my y-intercept. So wherever my x value is 0, the y value that's next to it is my y-intercept. So now I have to create an equation. We've done equations before, so all I have to do is put my rate of change and my y-intercept. So I want all of my equations in the form of y is equal to mx plus b. So I have my rate of change. My equation is going to start off with y is equal to -1 x plus my y-intercept, which is 3. Now on your quizzes and your tests, you're going to see it a little bit differently. You're going to see it like this, because if I have a 1 in front of an x, I don't have to put that 1. So you're going to see it y is equal to -x plus 3. So to get in a good habit, if you have a 1 in front of your x, just go ahead and don't even put the 1. I mean, it's still correct if you do, but know that you're not going to see that on any assignment, quiz, or test. The next thing I need to do is find out if it's proportional or non-proportional. In order for me to tell that, I look back at my table. And on my table, I look where my x value is 0. If the y value that's next to it is not 0, then it's non-proportional. If I have a y-intercept right here that is not 0, then it's non-proportional. So now I have to graph my points. So I have a table. So I'm going to graph -1 and 4. So I go over to -1 and I go up 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I plot my point there. Then I plot the next one. I have 0 and then I go up 3. My next one, I go over 3 and then I stay at 0. Notice it skips some points, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Then the last point is going over to 4 and then down 1. So now what I have to do is connect my dots and draw my arrows on both sides. So your graph should look really similar to mine. Go ahead and pause your video so that you can do the you do number 1 and then come back so we can do another example. So on the we do number 2, this is your example number 2. I have a graph instead of a table, and so what I have to do first is I have to find the points on my graph so that I can place them in my table. So my first point that I'm going to put is 0 and 5. Then I'm going to do 1 and 3, and then I'll do 2 and 1. So if you notice on your table, you only have 3 spots, so I'm only going to put 3 points. And I like positive numbers better than negative numbers, so that's why I stayed on my positive quadrant. You could do negative if it makes you feel better, but you don't have to. So my first point is 0 and 5. My next one was 1 and 3, so now I'm just filling in my table with those ordered pairs. And then the last one was 2 and 1. So there's two ways that I can do this. I can find my rate of change from my table, or I can find my rate of change from my graph. So I'll show you both ways. In order for me to find my rate of change from my graph, I have to do those stairs. Remember, if my stairs are going down, then that tells me that I'm going to have a negative rate of change. So my rate of change should be negative. So go ahead and put a negative symbol on rate of change. Then all I have to do is I need to find now what is the difference between 3 and 5. And I know the difference is 2. Then I have to look on my x-axis, and so I'm going down. So I have 0 and I have 1. And I know the difference between 0 and 1 is 1. What I also know is that it's change in y over change in x. And so it's 2 over 1, which is just 2. And remember that that's negative because my stairs go down. So let's see if we get the same thing when we do it from our table. So I'm going to find my pattern here. So between 0 and 1, I'm adding 1. But between 5 and 3, I'm subtracting 2. And so I know that it's 2, or negative 2 rather, over 1 because it's y over x. So if you notice, I still got negative 2 on both of them. So my rate of change is negative 2. So you can do it either way on your practice problems. My y-intercept, again, two ways that I can find this. From my graph, what I have to do is I have to find where it crosses my y-axis. Where does it cross this vertical axis, the y-axis? And it happens to cross right here, which is at 5. So I know my y-intercept is 5. But again, I could find this from my table. So I find my x value where it's 0, and I look next to it, and my y-intercept was 5. So notice how I get the same thing, regardless if I look at the table or the graph. Now I need an equation. My equation always starts with y is equal to. My rate of change goes first, so y is equal to negative 2x, you always need an x in there, plus 5. And then I have to find out, is it proportional or is it non-proportional? And so remember, if it's a proportional graph, it's a straight line and it goes through 0, 0. It goes through that origin. If I'm looking at my graph, it goes through 5. It does not go through my origin. So I know that it is non-proportional. So you're going to go ahead and pause your video. You're going to do the you do. If you have any questions, you're going to raise your hand. Once you finish the you do problem, then you are going to work on your practice problems. And there will be a spreadsheet for you to check your answers.